Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. Little change of scenery behind me. This is not Costa Rica. This is actually Florida. Lynn and I finished up our trip around Costa Rica, did a ton of filming, and we've been busy working on editing all of this footage to create videos for our other channel, Qroo and Linda. You can check them out there. But want to keep up with the Spanish videos to keep helping you out. So here I am. In the last video, I talked about the construction como si plus the imperfect subjunctive to translate as if or as though something. Juan actúa como si fuera rico. Juan acts as if he were rich. If you missed that video, you can check it out after this one. I also added it to the subjunctive trigger playlist. So, well anyway, in response to that video, several viewers asked me if I would do more videos about the uses of the imperfect subjunctive, so I thought I would introduce you to another construction that I use quite often, and this one actually deals with hypothetical situations, like hypothetical if situations, that use the imperfect subjunctive and the conditional together in the sentence. Those two tenses are going to be working hand in hand here, so you're going to have to know both of them to be able to use this construction. Here's an example. If I were rich, I would buy a yacht. Si yo fuera rico, compraría un yate. So in the first clause after the word si, which means if, it means yes if it has an accent, no accent, it means if. That first clause after if is going to be in the imperfect subjunctive. And the verb in the second clause is going to be in the conditional. The conditional is the would do something part, okay? That's the conditional in English too, when you say would do something. Here's another example. If I were you, I wouldn't go to the party. Si yo fuera tú, no iría a la fiesta. You could have left that yo out if it's very clear that I am the subject of the sentence. If it's not, you're going to want to leave it in. Because unlike many other tenses in Spanish, where yo can only have one set of conjugations and they don't repeat anywhere else, that's not the case here. Fuera can be the first person yo, or it can be the third person, right? He, she, it, usted, whatever. So we want to be clear. If it's not clear from context, I'm going to leave in the yo. Si yo fuera tú, no iría a la fiesta. And if it's clear, I might leave it out. Si fuera tú, no iría a la fiesta. Fuera is in the imperfect subjunctive and iría is in the conditional. This is actually a pretty good construction for you bossy folks that like to give a lot of advice. You might just want to put on your word list, si yo fuera tú, and then whatever, you know, and you can just start your sentences like that. Si fuera tú, no haría eso. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. Si fuera tú, or si yo fuera tú, no haría eso. Si fuera tú, no hablaría con ella. If I were you, I wouldn't talk to her. Si fuera tú, no hablaría con ella. The conditional tense is really easy to learn and use. You're just basically taking your infinitive and then putting these endings on that are like ia, ias, ia, iamos, ian. Super simple. Why don't you go ahead and try one? If I were you, I would study more. Si yo fuera tú, estudiaría más. Here's another one for you. If I were you, I would move to Spain. Si fuera tú, me mudaría a España. We used mudarse there, and that's a good one to use if you're going to move like to another location. Sometimes people try to use moverse. Don't use it for that. Moverse is good if you're like moving to seats, you're moving around, things like that. But if you're going to actually move like to a new apartment, house, things like that, use mudarse. So far, I've just been giving you examples with the imperfect subjunctive, but it is also super common with the pluperfect subjunctive. And well, don't let those grammatical terms scare you. They're basically the same thing. Anytime you see the word perfect in any tense, it just means it's the one you're using with Aber. That's it. No big mystery here. Here's an example of that. Si no me hubiera mudado a México, no te habría conocido. If I had not moved to Mexico, I wouldn't have met you. Take a look at the English first. There's actually two phrases in there, right? And they both use have. So in the Spanish, we have the corresponding constructions also using have or haber. That's the hubiera and habría. Hubiera is in the subjunctive and habría is in the conditional. You're always going to have one in the subjunctive and one in the conditional. The one in the subjunctive is going to come after the word si, if, no matter where it is in the sentence, all right? And if it's not real clear, then when you're looking at your English, look at where you're saying would something, and then you'll know that the other clause is in the subjunctive. So take a look at this English sentence. I would have gone to the party if you had told me that Maria would be there. We actually have 3 clauses stuck together, and 2 of them are using would, but don't let that throw you off, all right? In fact, go ahead and take a stab at this one. See if you can do it yourself. But my recommendation is to think of it in 3 clauses and kind of do your translation that way. I would break it down to, I would have gone to the party. Okay, then think, if you had told me, what? That Maria would be there. See if that helps you. Feel free to stop the video if you need to write this down. I'm just gonna pause here for a little bit. Enjoy the nice morning here. Not sure how much time you need on this. So here's the translation. I'm gonna give it to you just as I suggested, kind of as a breakdown. I would have gone to the party. What do we have going on there? Would. So we know that's conditional in English, right? So we're gonna have yo habría ido a la fiesta, or just habría ido a la fiesta if you know who we're talking about, right? Either one of those is fine. What's our next clause? If you had told me. There's our si in there, right? And we know we're gonna be dealing with the imperfect subjunctive or pluperfect subjunctive. We know the subjunctive is in there. So there's our trigger right there. Si me hubieras dicho. If you had told me. Told me what? That Maria would be there. That's another conditional, right? Que María estaría allí. In that final clause, we're using the conditional just like we do in English. When we're talking about something in the past, but we want to refer to something in the future, we use the conditional. If you had told me that Maria would be there, we say the same thing in English. So think of your English, and this is going to help you with this construction. See if you can do this one. This is a long one also. This is one of those things you'll typically see on memes. But again, when you look at these long sentences or paragraphs and things like that, don't get overwhelmed. Just break them down. That's what you're doing. You're just breaking down little phrases, and that's helping you get these things out. All right? If I had known that it would be the last time that we would see each other, I would have hugged you harder. Got a lot of woods in there. Got a lot of woods, but you're not gonna have a problem with this because you're gonna break it down, right? Just break it down. It's nice out here today. Not really sure how much time you need on this one. Maybe I'll go get a coffee or something. All right, you want it all at once? Are we gonna do the breakdown? Nah, you don't need the breakdown. Let's just do it all at once, okay? Si yo hubiera sabido que sería la última vez que nos veríamos, te habría abrazado más fuerte. I put a lot of emphasis in this too. It just sounds like that kind of saying, doesn't it? Did you get that? Did you put the subjunctive in that first part? There was our trigger right there, the if, si yo hubiera sabido, or just si hubiera sabido, right? And we know the rest are in the conditional because they're in the conditional in English too. This stuff's a piece of cake, right? All right, want to try a couple more before we head out for the day, or you done? Or all right, we'll just do a couple more. I'll keep these shorter though, all right? If you could choose any job, what would it be? And think, which would it be? It'll help you with the Spanish. Si pudieras elegir cualquier trabajo, ¿cuál sería? Now, instead of elegir, you might have used something like escoger, which also means to choose. You might have had something like, si pudieras escoger cualquier trabajo, ¿cuál sería? That's fine. If it's just like a vocab thing, that's not a problem. As long as you have pudieras, that's in the imperfect subjunctive, and you have sería, which is in the conditional. Let's do one more, and this one actually has a subject change in it, but it's not going to change this construction. If you had arrived on time, we would have been able to catch the first train. Ready? If you had arrived on time, that's our subjunctive, right? Si hubieras llegado a tiempo. We would have been able to catch the first train. There's our conditional. Habríamos podido tomar el primer tren. Now, you folks who are studying European Spanish probably selected the verb coger there for to catch the train, and that's fine in places like Spain or even Colombia. My wife uses it. But in Mexico, that verb does not mean the same thing, and it's just a very impolite way to say to fornicate. So when you're saying that there, they think you're doing something else to the train. Just something to keep in mind when you're traveling to different Spanish-speaking countries. The words you're using may not mean the same thing there. All right. So how did you do on these translations? Did you get them right? And if you did have some trouble, you're starting to see the patterns, so you can start to work on these on your own. A really good way to practice making your own sentences and be able to check your work is with online translators. I think one of the best ones out there is DeepL. That's just D-E-E-P-L. You can just look it up in Google, you'll find it. You make your sentence and then just plug it in and then see if it translates into English. And then hit the little reverse button and see what DeepL thinks, you know, that sentence should be. Now just keep in mind that it might choose some different vocabulary, like we talked about. Maybe it likes coger instead of tomar, things like that. But the gist of the sentence should be correct. Your verb conjugations should be correct. One thing I want to point out about the translator DeepL is that it is geared heavily towards European Spanish in terms of vocabulary, sentence structure, things like that. So just keep that in mind if you're studying more Latin American Spanish. So, you know, you might see coger instead of tomar. And also, if you're talking about something in the preterite, the simple past, then you might see that DeepL likes the perfect for that because that's European Spanish. Just little things to keep in mind. Well, that's it for the lesson today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, just do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.